Well, the Beer Association of South Africa, or BASA, says it is disheartened by government's decision to further ban the sale of alcohol. BASA also says while it understands urgent intervention is needed to take pressure off the healthcare system, it cannot be done at the expense of people's livelihoods. BASA says more than 30% of small businesses have been forced to close their doors permanently as a result of the ban. On Monday night, President Cyril Ramaphosa announced the ban on alcohol sales would remain until the middle of next month. Patricia Pillay, the Chief Executive Officer of the Beer Association of South Africa, joins us now to discuss this. Patricia, great to have you. Thanks very, very much for being with us.
Thanks, Dan.
When we talk about 30% of the industry, with particular reference to the smaller businesses having closed down, what are we referring to? What kind of businesses have we seen shut down?
I think our main concern has been these smaller businesses where people have taken their own money, invested in training up to become brewers, setting up the expensive equipment that's needed to brew, and then investing in facilities. I mean, the one example we have is the gentleman at Ukumva Brewers in the V&A waterfront, and he had set up all ready for the New Year's Eve and then was shut down. Now he is in debt for over 300,000 Rand, has rent to pay, and now is unable to do that. So these are the kind of, it's people who don't have huge cash flow at hand, they have families to support, and now are left in a dire state.
Yeah. I mean, if we look at the amount of jobs that have already been lost in the alcohol sector, what are we looking at?
Well, fortunately, I think that the big manufacturers have really come to the party here in giving support, in trying to keep as many of their workers on as possible, in terms of ensuring that we at least retain our employees. And the smaller brewers have also tried to reinvent themselves. They've turned some of their operations into soup kitchens. Some of the bigger brewers have been making sanitizers in the previous lockdowns. So we've really tried as an industry, but we really cannot go on in this way. And especially during this lockdown now with this gazette, there's no end, and there is no indication as to when we will be reopened. There's no indication as to what that time frame is or what the indications are as to when we can reopen.
Yeah, and that's the reality. I mean, that's what we've been speaking to. We don't know. And what we did hear yesterday from the briefing with regard to the restrictions and the regulations now with this level 3 is that until we see the numbers dropping, we are going to stay at this level. So that is not good news for your sector as well. Now, I mean, I'm just reading a couple of the figures that have been said by yourself, is that this could see the end of the craft beer industry, which has done exceptionally well in South Africa and has grown in immense popularity. But as you say, these are emerging businesses and smaller businesses, and also talking to a figure of about 165,000 people who to date have lost their jobs. I mean, are these the figures and the reality with regard to the craft beer industry that we're looking at right now?
And I think what we need to take into account is that this is all part of also the transformation. These are young and up-and-coming people who understanding the craft. It is really a craft. And this is all about drinking in moderation, drinking responsibly, and understanding the actual art and enjoyment of beer. And it's young people, it's young Black people that are coming out and joining this industry, which was criticized very heavily in the past for not being transformed. And here we have this new generation of people who have and are transforming this industry and now being shut down. So it is really sad.
Yeah, it really is. But let's look at the flip side of this, because obviously we need to look at it with a balanced point of view, and we understand the suffering that's being caused on the economic front, and that is very, very hard. But in terms of hospitals, in terms of the pressure on healthcare facilities, the facts were there that it was reduced over the festive season due to the alcohol ban, especially over the New Year period. Do you not think that it was government's only logical option to reduce the pressure of casualties in hospitals and free up those beds?
Well, we feel that a balance could have been made, and I don't think that there is, scientific evidence in that it was only the alcohol ban. If you look at mobility of people as well, we had a curfew in place. There were social gatherings that were prohibited, events, etc. So there was a whole host of initiatives and prohibitions that were put into place. It was just not isolated in terms of alcohol. So our proposal, Leanne, was that we keep then off consumption, we open up off consumption, keep the bans in place, and then still restrict on your gatherings, etc. And then at least there's a balance that can be sought. So not just open up the floodgates again. We still maintain the social distancing, the gatherings are limited, the bans are still in place. People are not out on the roads after late hours causing accidents, but there's at least off consumption where you can go home, enjoy responsibly in moderation with your families.
Yeah. Obviously, the consultation issue is something that is very, very big. And many people in your industry, as in other sectors of the alcohol industry and others, are saying that they weren't consulted and that this just happened, and now having to deal with the after effects of a decision like this. You've asked for a meeting with the president, with the respective ministers, to explain your situation. How is that going? Have you heard from anybody? Is there any ears that are willing to come your way?
We've met with the major manufacturing CEOs yesterday in terms of how we're going to work forward, and a letter will be sent out this morning by BASA to the presidency and to the ministers, and we're hoping we will receive a positive response. We've also been reached out to by the Gauteng Liquor Forum to say, look, they are in support of us. These are the taverners that are affected and women that are affected, because you must understand that this industry is not as male-dominated as people think. There are many women that are affected as well. And so many people are hoping that we will get a response to our letter that's getting sent out this morning after our decision that we've taken as to the way forward. And I think for us, it's really about, like you're saying, consultation, transparency, so that we can prepare ourselves to just be living day by day in limbo. It's bad enough that we need to live with this virus and the uncertainty of a virus, but over 1 million people in this alcohol industry now have to live with the added uncertainty of their livelihoods. Now, that strain on a person is just untenable.
Yeah. The other issue I know that you've brought to the fore is also thriving illegal industries, and this is something that we saw coming up during our first lockdown. And in terms of the level 5, whether it was the cigarettes or alcohol that was being done, and the danger that poses as well. From previous lockdowns, has it been proven that people actually just stop drinking, or do they just find other means in order to quench that thirst?
I definitely believe they find other means. I think we saw it at the president's last announcement. The minute the announcement was made, already people were receiving messages with alcohol that could be obtained 3 times the price that it would normally be sold. And you see it on social media as well. Also, the police have done raids in the last lockdown. Over 500,000 Rand worth of alcohol was found by the South African Police Services. And I think the point that I always make, Leanne, is that once you set up this illicit economy, it does not die. It stays and it thrives. And this is what's happening. It's overtaking the legal market. And the impact is not only to our industry, it's to the fiscus as well. So government is losing out on taxes. They're also not able to regulate. So we can't regulate what is being sold. That's a danger to the health of people as well. And also the loss, the money that could be obtained from these taxes could be used towards the vaccines.
Yeah, and that was lined out in court papers as well from SA Breweries. I think they were talking about the fact that, with all of these different lockdowns, the 3 alcohol bans, this has actually cost the fiscus to date 4.5 billion Rand. But that certainly is a lot of money. Talking about SAB, any updates with that and the court papers that they have filed, and are you in support of this as well? Obviously, it's a huge expense, and that's something that SA Breweries are looking at. What is your support in terms of this?
I always say that when you have options and when it's made easier for you, you can look at those options. But when you don't have consultation, transparency, you get no indication as to what your future is as an industry, and you have so many lives that are in your hands, you are pushed into a corner sometimes. And you have to do then what you need to do to make sure your business still thrives and exists and can maintain those livelihoods. So I think for us, it's very important to say that we're not able, and SAB, I'm sure, will not withdraw that application until we get any certainty. And we haven't got that certainty yet from government. So I don't see that case being withdrawn anytime soon. And I think that case will proceed. And until we get some kind of clarity from government as to what is that pillar, I mean, it keeps the goalposts keep on changing. And if government says it's when the numbers reduce, when is that? When is that going to happen? Because the vaccines are not going to come in the next week. So is it another 3 months that we're going to wait? Is it until the end of the year? So is an entire industry going to be shut down for another year? That's just untenable. We will collapse this entire industry.
Yeah. Do you support, I mean, just in a nutshell, do you support SA Breweries? Because I've seen a lot of other liquor organizations and manufacturers are saying that they're distancing themselves from this legal effort from SAB's behalf.
I think the concern is, and has always been, as any association, is it's always a last resort for us. You don't want to be adversarial with government. You want to work together as partners. And this is something we've always said as BASA in particular. We've said, look, let's work together to find solutions. Right now, there's a strain on our president. There's a strain on all the ministries as well as us as the citizens. And so let's not add strain to this. But as I've said, is that when you don't get a response, when you don't get consultation, it is when people have to take drastic measures. And so we actually are saying that, look, help us, government. We won't proceed in these ways if you come to the party and meet us in the middle here.
Yeah. Just, I suppose, to shed the reality and the light on this, how much further can the industry, or how much longer can the industry go on under these conditions? Because it has been very, very dire on the alcohol industry. But how much longer can it go on before we start seeing major closures, except for obviously these massive mega brands that obviously can withstand this hard time? But in terms of collapsing many more than we've already seen, how realistic is that looking?
Well, Leanne, to share with you, while everyone else was celebrating on New Year's Day, we were arranging food vouchers for our craft brewers because they had no food and they had no food for their children. That is how dire it is. And we don't go out publicly and, say this is what we're doing, because, it's also embarrassing for business owners. These are successful small business owners who managed to set up their businesses, who are now relying on food vouchers from an association. It's not a nice place to be in. And with regards to big business, they themselves are also suffering. I mean, you wouldn't take on government. It's not something that's done lightly if it wasn't impacting your business. And so that will tell you that big business is equally suffering. So in terms of a time frame, I can't give you an accurate time frame, but I can tell you from a small business perspective, we're not going to survive. From a big business perspective, we don't have much longer before we're going to have to start retrenching people.
Yeah. And that's unfortunately the harsh reality. But the other harsh reality, and as we wrap this up, is, as you say, the other side of the coin as well, where you look at medical professionals who are completely overburdened at this time, and particularly when we look at rising numbers in KZN and also in Gauteng, these are huge problems. But as we wrap this up, in terms of suggestions that you have made, I know that you've outlined a couple of them, but I mean, I've been reading a couple of tweets that have come through from people to say, at least allow us to buy online, to let it be delivered to our house and consume it in the house, and as responsibly as we possibly can. Obviously, these are things that you would like to see coming through, is that meeting halfway, not even halfway, but to just make some money out of this.
Absolutely. And, we want to say that we're not insensitive to the strain on the healthcare system, to the healthcare workers, etc. I mean, we ourselves have lost loved ones to COVID. So it's something that is top of mind for us. But as you've said, what we're saying is let's be reasonable, let's be balanced in our approach. Off consumption is a way to do it. You can open up retail stores for a short while, allow people to purchase their products. And the click and collect system during the first lockdown that we initiated is the online, and you can order online, get it delivered safely to your homes. We also introduced this in your taverns, so it's not excluding any market at all. You can actually get it as a click and collect as well. So it is a way to ensure there's no gatherings at all, but you enjoy responsibly in moderation in your homes. But what we are saying is keep the bans in place in terms of the actual lockdowns with regards to your times, your curfews, and the bans on the social gatherings.
Patricia Pillay, CEO of the Beer Association of South Africa, thanks. Thanks very, very much for your time, and keep us updated with the letter, any response that you do get from the businesses over this time. Thanks for being with us. All right, so that wraps up that interview.